In a city where silence costs more than gold, one glance can sign a death warrant or spark a war. Dante Moretti didn't believe in fate. He believed in leverage. But the moment he saw the woman in the faded red dress, sitting alone in the VIP section of Il Palazzo, sipping cheap water like it was vintage wine, his entire empire stopped spinning. She wasn't supposed to be there. She was a glitch in his perfect matrix. He didn't ask who she was. He simply leaned toward his enforcer eyes, dark with obsession, and gave the order that would burn the city to the ground. Bring her to me. The air inside Il Palazzo always smelled the same truffle oil, aged leather, and fear. It was the most exclusive restaurant in Chicago, a place where senators broke bread with cartel leaders, and the blinds were always drawn against the prying eyes of the mortal world. Dante Moretti sat at table 1, the booth permanently reserved for him in the shadowed corner of the mezzanine. He was 32, wearing a bespoke brony suit that cost more than the average American's annual mortgage. On his wrist, a Patek Philippe Nautilus ticked away seconds that were worth millions. He was the capo of the Chicago outfit, a man who had sanitized the family business from street corner brawls into boardroom acquisitions. "The shipment from Naples is delayed, boss," Luca said. His voice low. Luca was Dante's right hand, a man built like a vending machine with a neck as thick as a tree trunk. Dante didn't answer. He wasn't listening. His dark eyes, usually cold and calculating, were fixed on a point on the lower floor. "Boss." Luca followed his gaze. Down in the main dining room, amidst the sea of black cocktail dresses and diamond chokers, sat an anomaly. She was a woman, perhaps 24, sitting at a table for 2. But she was alone. She wore a red dress that had clearly seen better days. The hem was slightly frayed, and the fabric didn't have the sheen of silk. She wasn't wearing jewelry, no Cartier love bracelets, no Van Cleef necklace. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, secured with a simple black elastic. She looked like a sparrow that had accidentally flown into a hawk's nest. "Who is that?" Dante asked, his voice a low rumble. Luca squinted. "No idea. Reservations are vetted weeks in advance. She shouldn't be here. I'll have security remove her." "No." Dante's hand shot up, stopping Luca. He watched her. She was nervous. Her fingers tapped a frantic rhythm on the white tablecloth. She kept checking her phone, a cracked iPhone 8 that looked ancient compared to the latest tech on the other tables. She wasn't eating. She had ordered a glass of tap water. The waiter, a man named Paolo who usually had the patience of a saint, looked annoyed. He hovered over her, likely pressuring her to order or leave. Dante saw the woman look up at Paolo. She didn't shrink. She didn't apologize. She said something, her jaw set tight, her eyes flashing with a defiance that reached all the way up to the mezzanine. Dante felt a strange pull in his chest. In his world, everyone bowed. Everyone smiled. Everyone feared. She looked like she was ready to fight the whole room with nothing but a plastic fork. "She's waiting for someone," Dante observed. "Whoever it is, they're late." Luca noted. "She's been there 20 minutes. The matre is getting ready to bounce her. Table 6 is reserved for the senator at 8:00. Dante watched as the matre, a snobbish man named Stefano, approached the woman. Stefano leaned down, his posture aggressive. He pointed to the door. The woman stood up. She wasn't tall, but she had a presence. She slammed her hand on the table, not hard enough to break glass, but hard enough to make Stefano flinch. Dante smiled. It was the first time he had smiled in 6 months. "Luca," Dante said, standing up and buttoning his jacket. "Yeah, boss. You want me to handle Stefano?" "No," Dante said, his eyes never leaving the woman in red. "Go down there. Tell Stefano the lady is dining with me." Luca's jaw dropped. "Boss, you don't dine with strangers. We have the meeting with the Russians in an hour." "Cancel the Russians," Dante said, turning to check his reflection in the darkened window. He straightened his tie. "And bring her to me." Sienna Brooks was shaking, but she refused to let the pompous man in the tuxedo see it. "I told you," Sienna hissed, her voice trembling with adrenaline. "I am not leaving until I see the manager. I have a reservation." "You have a reservation under the name Smith?" Stefano sneered, looking down his nose at her. "A reservation made online 5 minutes ago. We do not accept walk-ins, and we certainly do not accept this." He gestured vaguely at her dress. It was a cheap dress she'd bought at a thrift store for $12. It was all she had. I'm a paying customer, Sienna insisted, though she had exactly $40 in her bank account. I just need to speak to someone who worked here 3 years ago, a man named Giovanni. There is no Giovanni here, Stefano snapped. Now leave before I call the police. Sienna felt the tears stinging her eyes. She couldn't leave. This was the only lead she had. Her sister Lily had vanished 3 years ago. The police had closed the case, calling it a runaway situation. But Sienna found the matchbook in Lily's old coat pocket yesterday. Il Palato and a name scrolled on the back. Giovanni. She wasn't leaving without answers. Suddenly a shadow fell over the table. The air pressure seemed to drop. Stefano, who had been looking at her like she was a cockroach, suddenly went pale. He straightened his spine so fast it cracked. Mr. Luca Stefano stammered. Sienna turned. A giant of a man stood there. He wore a suit that struggled to contain his muscles. He looked like he broke people for a living. "Is there a problem, Stefano?" the giant asked. His voice was like gravel in a mixer. "No, sir. Just escorting this young lady out. She is disturbing the ambiance." The giant ignored Stefano and looked at Sienna. His eyes were hard, assessing. "My employer would like a word." Sienna took a step back, gripping her purse. "I don't know your employer. I'm just leaving." "You're not leaving," or the giant said. It wasn't a threat. It was a statement of fact. He gestured toward the staircase leading to the mezzanine. "He saw you having trouble. He wants to buy you dinner." Sienna looked up. The mezzanine was dark, shrouded in shadows. She could just make out the silhouette of a man sitting alone at a large circular booth. He was watching her. Even from this distance, she could feel the weight of his gaze. It felt heavy, possessive. "I'm not a hooker," Sienna spat out. "Tell your boss. I'm not interested." Stefano gasped. "You stupid girl. That is Dante Moretti." The name hit Sienna like a physical blow. Dante Moretti, the king of Chicago, the man who owned the police, the judges, and half the skyline, even in her quiet suburban life. She knew the name. It was whispered in fear on the news. If Dante Moretti wanted to see her, she didn't really have a choice. And if anyone knew about the staff who worked here 3 years ago, it would be the owner. Sienna swallowed her fear. This was her chance. "Fine," she said, lifting her chin. "Take me to him." Luca nodded, surprised by her sudden compliance. He led her through the restaurant. The hush that fell over the room was immediate. Conversation stopped. Forks hovered halfway to mouths. Everyone watched the girl in the thrift store dress being escorted to the king's table. They walked up the stairs. The air grew cooler. Dante Moretti did not stand up. She arrived. He sat relaxed, one arm draped over the back of the velvet booth, a glass of amber liquid in his hand. Up close, he was devastating. Sharp cheekbones, a jawline that could cut glass, and eyes so dark they looked like endless tunnels. "Sit," he said. Sienna hesitated, then slid into the booth opposite him. The leather was soft, expensive. "You're causing a scene, Piccolola," Dante said softly. His voice was smooth, cultured, but with a dangerous edge. "I didn't ask to be brought up here," Sienna replied, keeping her voice steady. "Your gorilla insisted." Luca, standing by the railing, stiffened. Dante chuckled. "Luca is sensitive. Don't call him a gorilla." Dante swirled his drink. "What is your name?" "Sienna?" "Sienna?" He tasted the name. "And what is a Sienna doing in Il Palazzo wearing a dress that costs less than the water on this table fighting with my staff?" "I'm looking for someone," she said. "A man named Giovanni. He worked here 3 years ago." Dante's expression didn't change, but the air in the booth shifted. It became colder. "Giovanni," he repeated. "Why do you want to find Giovanni?" "That's none of your business," Sienna said. "I just need to know where he is." Dante leaned forward. The candlelight caught the gold of his watch. "Everything in this city is my business, especially what happens inside these walls. Giovanni hasn't worked here in a long time." "Do you know where he is?" "I know where everyone is," Dante said enigmatically. He signaled the waiter. "But first, we eat. You look starving, and I don't discuss business on an empty stomach." "I can't afford to eat here," Sienna said bluntly. "I didn't ask for your wallet, Sienna. I asked for your company." Dante's eyes locked onto hers. "Eat with me, and I will tell you about Giovanni." It was a trap. She knew it, but the hunger in her stomach and the desperation in her heart made her nod. "Okay," she whispered. "One meal." Dante smiled, a predator, watching the gate close behind his prey. One meal, that's all it starts with. The meal was a blur of flavors Sienna had never experienced. Truffle Rotto seared scallops wine that tasted like velvet. She ate, trying to maintain her dignity while Dante watched her. He barely touched his food. He seemed to be consuming her instead. He asked her questions. Where she lived, a studio in the bad part of town, what she did, waitress at a diner, why she was so desperate. She answered vaguely, keeping her cards close to her chest. So, Dante said as the plates were cleared, "Giovanni, you promised." Sienna reminded him. Dante took a sip of his wine. Giovanni was a sous chef here. He was let go for stealing. Stealing what? Information. Dante said he was selling guest lists to the paparazzi, or so we thought. My sister knew him. Sienna blurted out, Lily, she dated him 3 years ago. Then she disappeared. Dante froze. The glass stopped halfway to his lips. Lily Brooks. She was blonde, blue eyes. She used to meet him here. Dante set the glass down slowly. He looked at Luca, who was standing a few feet away. A silent communication passed between them. A look of recognition and alarm. I don't know a Lily. Dante lied. Sienna could tell it was a lie. He was too controlled. But Giovanni, he met a bad end. He's dead. Sienna felt the blood drain from her face. Dead? How? Car accident, Dante said dismissively. 2 years ago. Then who sent me the letter? Sienna whispered more to herself than him. What letter? Dante's voice was sharp now. Sienna reached into her purse. She hadn't shown the letter to anyone. It had arrived 3 days ago, typed on plain paper. No return address. It just said, if you want to find Lily, go to Il Palazzo. Ask for Giovanni. Don't trust the suits. She pulled it out and slid it across the table. Dante picked it up. He scanned. The text. His eyes narrowed. He held the paper up to the light, inspecting the watermark. This paper, Dante murmured. It's high-grade linen. Imported. Does it mean something? It means, Dante said, his voice dropping to a lethal whisper, that someone is playing a game and they are using you as the pawn. Suddenly Dante's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his face hardened into stone. He looked at the main entrance of the restaurant below. The doors burst open. 5 men in trench coats walked in. They weren't customers. They moved with military precision. Luca, Dante said calmly, standing up. Clear the room. Who are they? Sienna asked, panic rising in her throat. Victor Valente's men, Dante said. He reached out and grabbed Sienna's hand. His grip was iron. You wanted answers, Sienna. You just walked into the middle of a war. I want to go home, Sienna stammered, trying to pull her hand away. Too late, Dante said, pulling her closer until her chest bumped against his hard suit jacket. He smelled of expensive cologne and gunpowder. You're with me now. If you leave this table, you die. If you stay with me, you might just live. Downstairs. The first gunshot shattered the expensive silence of Il Palazzo. Screams erupted. Stay down, Dante roared, shoving Sienna beneath the heavy oak table. He drew a gun from a holster beneath his jacket, a sleek black pistol. He didn't look scared. He looked energized. Sienna curled into a ball under the table, hands over her ears. She watched Dante's polished shoes moving. Planting themselves firmly, she heard the deafening cracks of gunfire glass shattering and the shouts of men. She realized then that the letter hadn't been an invitation. It had been a lure. Someone wanted her here specifically tonight, specifically when Dante Moretti was here. But why her? She was nobody, unless she was. Too nobody. The shooting stopped abruptly. Boss, Luca's voice shouted. Back door is clear. We have to move. Dante reached under the table and hauled Sienna up. Run my purse. Forget the purse. Dante dragged her toward the kitchen entrance. They burst into the kitchen, startling the chefs. Dante moved with terrifying speed, navigating the stainless steel counters. They exited into the alleyway where a black armored SUV was already waiting, engine running. Dante threw the back door open and shoved Sienna inside. He jumped in after her. Luca took the driver's seat. Go! Dante yelled. The SUV screeched away, tires smoking just as bullets pinged off the rear window. Sienna was hyperventilating, pressed against the leather seat. What is happening? Who are those people? Dante turned to her. The calm facade was gone. He looked furious. He grabbed her chin, forcing her to look at him. "You said your name is Sienna Brooks," he demanded. "Yes. Then why?" Dante hissed, pulling a photo out of his inner pocket and slamming it against the window. "Does Victor Valente have a hit out on a woman named Sienna Rossini?" Sienna stared at the photo. It was a picture of her, but the name Rossini. "I don't know that name," she cried. "You better start remembering us," Dante said darkly, the city lights flickering across his face. "Because Victor Valente doesn't miss. And now that he knows you're with me, he'll tear this city apart to get you back." He paused, looking at her lips, then her eyes. "And I don't give up what's mine." The armored SUV cut through the night like a black shark in dark water. The city lights of Chicago faded into the rear-view mirror, replaced by the looming shadows of the forest that bordered the state line. Inside the cabin, the silence was louder than the gunfire had been. Sienna sat huddled in the corner, her arms wrapped around herself. She was shivery. NG, not from cold, but from the aftershock of adrenaline. She watched Dante Moretti. He was on his phone speaking in rapid-fire Italian, his voice low and lethal. He hadn't looked at her since they got in the car. "Luca," Dante said, hanging up the phone. "Take us to the Cliffside property. The penthouse is compromised." "Cliffside, boss. We haven't prepped it for months," Luca said, eyeing the rearview mirror. "It's isolated." "Exactly," Dante replied. "Victor knows about the penthouse. He doesn't know about Cliffside." He finally turned to Sienna. The passing streetlights sliced across his face, illuminating the sharp angle of his jaw and the brooding darkness in his eyes. He looked at her torn dress, the smudge of dirt on her cheek, and the raw fear in her eyes. "Stop shaking," he commanded, though his tone wasn't unkind. It was practical. "Fear makes, you irrational. I need you lucid. You kidnapped me," Sienna snapped, her voice cracking. "And people were shooting at us. I think I'm allowed to shake." Dante studied her. Most women in his world would be hysterical by now. Sienna was terrified, yes, but she was angry. He liked that. "I saved you," Dante corrected. "There is a difference. If I had left you there, Victor Valente's men would have put a bullet in your head before the appetizer arrived. Or worse, they would have taken you alive." "Why?" Sienna demanded. "I'm nobody. I'm a waitress. I have $40 to my name." "Who is Sienna Rossini?" Dante didn't answer immediately. The car slowed as it turned onto a gravel road winding up a steep hill. Iron gates loomed ahead, opening automatically as the car approached. They drove up a long driveway lined with ancient pines until a house appeared. It was a modern fortress of glass and concrete perched on the edge of a limestone cliff overlooking a quarry lake. It looked cold, impenetrable, and lonely. "Out," Dante said as the car stopped. He led her into the house. The interior was vast and minimalist. White marble floors, black leather furniture, and floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out into the black void of the night. It felt less like a home and more like a museum for a man who didn't know how to live. Luca secured the perimeter. "Sensors on max," Dante ordered. He walked to a wet bar and poured 2 glasses of brandy. He walked over to Sienna and held one out. "Drink." "I don't want drink," he repeated. "It will settle your nerves." Sienna took the glass and downed it in one burning gulp. She coughed, the heat spreading through her chest. Dante leaned against the marble island, crossing his arms. "The Rossini family," he began, "ruled Chicago 30 years ago. They were royalty, brutal, efficient, and incredibly wealthy. But they got greedy. They started a war with my father." Sienna listened, mesmerized by the deep cadence of his voice. "My father won," Dante said simply. "The Rossini empire was dismantled. The family was removed. We thought the bloodline ended that night. But rumors persisted that the youngest daughter, a baby, had been smuggled out by a maid." He stepped closer to her, invading her personal space. He reached out and touched a loose strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers were warm, rough calluses grazing her soft skin. "Victor Valente was a lieutenant for the Rossinis back then. He believes that if he finds the heir, the lost Rossini girl, he can rally the old loyalists and challenge my claim to the city." Sienna shook her head. "That's a fairy tale. My parents were boring. They worked in insurance. They died in a car crash when I was 10. I'm not some mafia princess." "Adoption records can be forged," Dante said. "And faces don't lie." You have the Rossini eyes, the same shape, the same defiance. This is insane, Sienna whispered. I just wanted to find M. Why, sister? Ah, yes, Lily. Dante's expression darkened. He set his glass down. The sister who vanished. The sister who dated Giovanni. You said Giovanni died. I lied. Sienna froze. He's alive. No, Dante said, his voice dropping to a whisper that sounded like a graveyard wind. He's dead. But his name wasn't. Giovanni, that was the name he used when he wanted to pretend he wasn't my brother. Sienna gasped, Your brother? Matteo Moretti. Dante said he hated the life. He wanted to be a chef, so he used a fake name, worked in my kitchen, pretended to be normal. He met a girl, a blonde girl, Lily. Dante turned away, walking toward the window, looking out at the darkness. 3 years ago, Matteo and Lily disappeared on the same night. We found Matteo's body a week later in the trunk of a car at O'Hare Airport. He had been tortured. Sienna put a hand over her mouth, tears springing to her eyes. Oh my God, we never found the girl, Dante said, not turning around. We assumed she set him up. A honeypot, a trap set by our enemies to kill the brother of the dawn. He turned back to her, his eyes blazing with 3 years of suppressed rage. So tell me, Sienna, did your sister kill my brother? The accusation hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Sienna stepped back, hitting the counter. No, she said fiercely. Lily would never hurt anyone. She loved him. I remember. She called me that week. She said she was in love. She said they were going to run away together. Run away? Dante laughed a harsh, humorous sound. No one runs away from this life. You only leave in a casket. He walked toward her again, pinning her against the counter. He was so close she could see the flecks of gold in his dark irises. The air crackled with a tension that was half violence, half desire. You are the key, Dante murmured, looking down at her. Victor wants you because he thinks you are a Rossini. I wanted you because I thought you led to my brother's killer, but now, his gaze dropped to her lips. Now what? Sienna breathed, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. Now, Dante whispered, I think we are both pieces in a game we don't understand, and until I figure it out, you belong to me. He didn't kiss her. He pulled back, leaving her cold and trembling. There is a guest room down the hall. Lock the door. Not that it will stop me if I wanted to get in, but it might make you sleep better. He turned and walked away, disappearing into the shadows of the massive house, leaving Sienna alone with the ghosts of the past. Sienna didn't sleep. The guest room was more luxurious than any apartment she had ever lived in. The sheets were Egyptian cotton. The bathroom was stocked with products that smelled of lavender and money, and the view of the moonlit quarry was breathtaking, but the door had a heavy electronic lock, and the windows were reinforced glass. It was a gilded gulch. She spent the night pacing, her mind racing. Sienna Rossini. It had to be a mistake. Her parents, the ones who raised her, were kind, simple people. They had never mentioned Italy or mafias or blood feuds. But then she remembered the letter. Don't trust the suits. And Lily, who had always been the adventurous one. Lily, who had secrets. At dawn, Sienna couldn't take the confinement anymore. She showered, washing the scent of the restaurant and fear off her skin, and put the red dress back on. It was wrinkled, but it was all she had. She ventured out into the hallway. The house was silent. She found the kitchen, a sleek expanse of stainless steel. Dante was there. He was standing by the espresso machine, wearing gray sweatpants and a tight black t-shirt that clung to his broad shoulders. He looked less like a king and more like a warrior at rest. He was reading a file wearing reading glasses, that mad. Him looked confusingly intellectual. Coffee? He asked without looking up. Please, Sienna said. He poured a cup and slid it across the island. Did you sleep? No. Did you? I don't sleep much, Dante admitted. He took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. I have news. Sienna gripped the coffee mug. About Lily. About the night they disappeared. Dante tapped the file. I had Luca pull the old security footage from Il Palazzo, the archives. We thought the tapes were wiped, but the backup server had a fragment. He turned a laptop around so she could see. The video was grainy, black and white. It showed the back exit of the restaurant. A man, young, handsome, with Dante's jawline, was laughing. He was holding hands with a girl. Sienna's breath hitched. That's Lily. In the video, Lily looked happy. She was wearing a white coat. They stopped by a car. Mateo leaned in and kissed her. It was tender, real. Then headlights swept across the frame. A van pulled up. Men jumped out. Mateo shoved Lily behind him. He fought, swinging wildly, but there were too many of them. They pistol-whipped him, dragging him toward the van. But then something strange happened. The men didn't drag Lily. One of them, a tall man in a trench coat, walked up to her. He didn't hit her. He bowed. Sienna blinked. Did he just bow to her? Watch, Dante said, his voice grim. The man in the video gestured to a separate car, a limousine that had pulled up behind the van. Lily looked terrified, screaming for Mateo, but the men held her back. The tall man said something to her. She stopped struggling. She looked at Mateo, then at the limo. She nodded slowly. She got into the limo willingly. The screen went black. Sienna stared at the blank screen, horror washing over her. It looks like she went with them. She made a deal, Dante said, cold fury returning to his voice. She traded my brother's life for something. Or she went with her own people. No, Sienna insisted. She looked scared. She did that to save him. He died anyway. Dante slammed the laptop shut. The sound echoed like a gunshot. She got into the car with the enemy, the man who bowed. That was Victor Valente's father. The old Don. Dante walked around the counter, his anger radiating off him in waves. Your sister wasn't just dating Mateo. She was a Rossini agent. She lured him out. That's not true, Sienna yelled, standing her ground. You don't know her. She probably thought if she went with them, they would let him go. She sacrificed herself. And where is she now? Dante challenged. If she sacrificed herself, why is there no body? Why has no one seen her in 3 years? Unless she is sitting on a throne somewhere in Italy, laughing at the Moretti fools. If she was safe, she would have contacted me. Unless she didn't want you to know who she really was. Dante stopped inches from her. Maybe she knew you were the spare, the backup heir. I don't believe you. Then explain this. Dante pulled a piece of paper from the file. It was a photocopy of a birth certificate. Name, Sienna Isabella Rossini. Date of birth, June 12, 1999. Mother, Claudia Rossini. Father, Antonio Rossini. Sienna stared at the date. It was her birthday. My parents, she faltered. Your parents adopted you through a private agency that specializes in erasing children. Dante explained. I made calls last night. The agency was funded by the Rossini Trust. Sienna felt her knees give out. She grabbed the counter for support. The world was spinning. Her entire identity, her memories, her simple life, it was all a fabrication to hide a dangerous truth. Dante's expression softened just a fraction. He saw the devastation in her eyes. It wasn't the look of a conspirator, it was the look of a victim. He reached out his hand, wrapping around her waist to steady. Her, breathe, he ordered softly. I don't know who I am, she whispered, tears spilling over. You are Sienna, Dante said, his thumb brushing away a tear, and you are in my house, which means you are my problem. Am I your prisoner for now? And when you're done with me? Dante looked at her mouth, then back to her eyes. The anger was fading, replaced by a curiosity that was far more dangerous. I haven't decided, he murmured. But I know one thing. Victor Valente wants you to reclaim his kingdom. He needs you to sign the papers to unlock the Rossini assets in Switzerland. Without you, he has no money for his war. So, I'm a key, Sienna said bitterly. Just a thing to be used to him. Yes, Dante said. He leaned closer, his forehead resting against hers. It was an intimate gesture, shocking in its suddenness. But to me, you are becoming something else. What? She breathed. A liability, he whispered. One I should eliminate, but I can't seem to pull the trigger. Suddenly a loud alarm blared through the house. Red lights flashed in the kitchen. Dante pulled back instantly, his demeanor shifting from lover to soldier in a split second. He pulled a gun from the back of his waistband. Luca, he roared. Luca burst into the room holding an assault rifle. Boss, perimeter breached. We have heat signatures in the woods, at least 20 of them. They found us. Dante growled. He looked at Sienna. How no one knew about this place. Sienna's hand flew to her necklace, a simple silver locket she had worn every day for 3 years. It was a gift from Lily before she disappeared. "Sigh," Dante said, his eyes locking onto the locket. "Give me that." "My sister gave it to me." Dante ripped it from her neck. He threw it on the floor and stomped on it. The silver shattered. Inside, amidst the broken metal, was a tiny blinking red chip. "A tracker," Dante hissed. "It's been active for 3 years. They didn't come for you before because they didn't need you yet. But the moment you stepped into Il Palazzo, they activated it." Sienna stared at the broken locket. Lily had given it to her. Lily had tagged her like an animal. "We have to move," Dante said, grabbing her hand. "To the safe room now." Some boom. The front window of the living room shattered as a rocket-propelled grenade impacted the facade. The explosion rocked the house, throwing Sienna and Dante to the floor. Dust and debris filled the air. Dante covered Sienna's body with his own, shielding her from the glass. He groaned as a shard sliced his arm. He lifted his head, blood trickling down his temple. "Get up, Dante," she screamed as she saw the blood. "I'm fine," he gritted out. He hauled her to her feet. "Welcome to the family, Sienna." They ran toward the basement, the sound of automatic gunfire tearing through the luxury of the safe house, signaling that the war had truly begun. The basement of the cliffside house was not a storage area. It was a bunker. The walls were reinforced concrete, and the air smelled of stale oxygen and gun oil. "Luca, get the tunnel door open," Dante barked, dragging Sienna behind him. His arm was bleeding freely now, soaking the sleeve of his white shirt crimson, but he didn't seem to notice. His focus was entirely on her. "Codes are entered. It's cycling," Luca shouted, typing frantically on a keypad next to a heavy steel blast door. Above them, the house groaned. Footsteps thundered on the floorboards overhead. They were inside. "Sienna?" Dante said, pulling her into the shadow of a weapons rack. He reached into his waistband and pulled out a smaller gun, a snub-nosed revolver. He pressed it into her hand. "Do you know how to use this?" Sienna's hands were shaking so hard the gun rattled. "No, I've never held a gun." "Point. Squeeze. Don't clap. Ose your eyes," Dante commanded, his voice intense. "If anyone comes through that door who isn't me or Luca, you pull the trigger. Do you understand, Dante? You're bleeding," she sobbed, looking at his arm. "It's a scratch," he lied. He cupped her face with his good hand. For a second, the war outside vanished. "Listen to me. They want you alive. That is your leverage. But they want me dead, if it comes down to it. You surrender. You survive. I will find a way to come back for you. I'm not leaving you. You don't have a choice." The steel door hissed and began to slide open, revealing a dark tunnel that led to the boathouse at the base of the cliff. "Go," Dante yelled. "Boss contact." Luca screamed. The door at the top of the basement stairs burst open. A flashbang grenade rolled down the steps. Bang! A blinding white light seared Sienna's vision, followed by a deafening ringing in her ears. She fell back, disoriented. Through the haze, she saw Dante firing his weapon, the muzzle flashes lighting up the dark bunker. Luca was providing cover fire, his assault rifle roaring, but there were too many of them. Men in tactical gear swarmed down the stairs like ants. Sienna felt rough hands grab her arms. She screamed, flailing, trying to raise the gun Dante had given her, but a boot kicked it out of her hand. "Secure the package," a voice shouted. She was dragged to her knees. Her vision cleared slowly. The firing had stopped. Luca lay on the ground, unconscious, blood pooling around his head. And Dante was on his knees in the center of the room, 3 laser sights trained on his chest. He had dropped his gun. He looked at Sienna, his eyes conveying a desperate apology. He had surrendered to stop them from shooting her. "Well, well." A smooth voice echoed from the stairs. The great Dante Moretti brought to his knees. A man walked down the steps. He was older, perhaps 50, with silver hair and a suit that looked sharper than a knife blade. Victor Valente. Victor. Dante spat blood on his teeth. "You look old and you look finished." Victor smiled. He walked over to Sienna, looking down at her with a terrifying hunger. "Sienna Rossini, you look just like your mother." "Go to hell," Sienna said, spitting in his face. Victor laughed, wiping the saliva away with a silk handkerchief. "Feisty. Good. But I'm not the one you should be mad at." Victor snapped his fingers. "Bring her in." From the shadows of the staircase, a figure emerged. A woman, she wore a white cashmere coat and diamond earrings. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled. Sienna felt the world stop. Her heart ceased to beat. "Lily," she whispered. The woman looked at Sienna. It was her sister, but the warmth was gone from her eyes, replaced by a cold, hard calculation. "Hello, Sienna," Lily said, her voice flat. You're alive." Sienna tried to stand, but the guards held her down. "Dante told me the tracker." I didn't believe him. "It was necessary," Lily said, walking over to stand beside Victor Valente. She slipped her hand into the crook of the old mobster's arm. Sienna stared at the contact between them, her sister and the enemy. "Why?" "Because I didn't want to be a waitress for the rest of my life, Sienna," Lily said, her voice dripping with disdain. "I found out about our heritage 3 years ago. I found Matteo. I used him to get close to the life. But Matteo was weak. He wanted to leave the Mafia. He wanted to open a bakery." Lily laughed a cruel sound. "Can you imagine a Rossini baking bread? You traded him," Dante growled from the floor. "You traded my brother to Victor for a seat at the table." "I traded him for my birthright," Lily corrected. She looked at Sienna. "But I couldn't access the trust funds alone. The accounts required 2 signatures, the 2 Rossini heirs. I needed you, Sienna, but I couldn't just call you. I needed you to come to me. I needed you to be desperate," the letter Sienna realized. "You sent it. I lured you to Dante so he would protect you until I was ready to collect," Lily explained calmly. "And now we are all here." Victor Valente pulled a gun and pressed the barrel against Dante's forehead. "Sign the papers, Sienna," Victor said. "Transfer the Rossini billions to our control, or I paint this bunker with your boyfriend's brains." Sienna looked at Dante. He stared back, his eyes burning. "Don't do it," he mouthed silently. "If I sign," Sienna said, her voice trembling but gaining strength. "You let him go, Sienna." "No," Dante shouted. "Deal." Victor lied. His smile was like a shark's. "I need a pen," Sienna said. Lily stepped forward, pulling a gold fountain pen from her coat. She handed it to Sienna. "Don't be stupid, little sister. Just sign. We can rule this city together." Sienna took the pen. She looked at the documents a guard placed on the floor in front of her. She looked at Dante, ready to die for her. She looked at Lily, the sister she had mourned, who was now a monster. Sienna uncapped the pen. "I'm sorry, Lily," Sienna whispered. "For what?" "For this." Sienna didn't sign. Instead, she jammed the sharp nib of the fountain pen into the thigh of the guard holding her right arm. The guard screamed and let go. In that split second of chaos, Dante moved. He didn't go for the gun. He lunged upward, headbutting Victor Valente in the jaw with a sickening crunch. The gun flew from Victor's hand. Dante rolled, grabbed the loose gun, and fired 3 shots in under a second. 2 guards dropped. "Get to the tunnel," Dante roared. But Lily was faster. She grabbed Sienna, pulling a small pistol from her coat pocket and pressing it to Sienna's temple. "Stop!" Lily screamed. "Drop the gun, Dante, or I kill her. I swear to God, I'll kill her." Dante froze. The barrel of his gun was aimed at Victor, who was groaning on the floor. "But Lily had Sienna. She's your sister," Dante said, his chest heaving. "She's a spare part," Lily yelled, her face twisted in rage. "I am the queen. I did everything. I sacrificed everything." Sienna felt the cold metal against her skin. She looked into Lily's eyes and saw nothing but madness. "You sacrificed nothing," Sienna said softly. "You just sold your soul." And then Sienna did the one thing Lily didn't expect. She didn't pull away. She threw her weight backward, slamming herself and Lily into the concrete wall. The gun went off. The gunshot echoed in the small bunker like a cannon blast. Sienna felt a searing heat graze her ribs, but she didn't fall. Behind her, Lily gasped. The impact against the wall had made her arm jerk. The bullet had missed Sienna's head by inches and buried itself in the ceiling. Sienna spun around and shoved Lily. Lily, wearing high heels on the slick concrete, stumbled and fell hard. "Dante, now!" Sienna screamed. Dante didn't hesitate. He pistol-hipped Victor Valente into unconsciousness and turned his weapon on the remaining guards who were hesitating, seeing their boss down. "Drop them." Dante's voice was the voice of death itself. "Or you all die right here." The guards looked at Dante, then at the unconscious Victor, and finally at the frantic Lily on the floor. They drop their weapons. In the Mafia world, you only follow the winner, and Dante Moretti had just won. Dante kicked the guns away and rushed to Sienna. "Are you hit?" "I'm fine," she gasped, checking her side. "It was just a burn." Dante turned to Lily. She was trying to crawl toward the gun she had dropped. Dante stepped on her hand, applying pressure until she cried out. "It's over, Lily," Dante said coldly. Lily looked up, tears streaming down her face, tears of frust. "Ration, not remorse. You can't kill me. I'm a Rossini. I own half this city." Dante looked at Sienna. "It's her call." Sienna looked down at the woman she had idolized her whole life, the sister whose picture she kept by her bed. "You're not a Rossini," Sienna said, her voice shaking with emotion. "Our parents, the ones who raised us, they taught us to be good, to be kind. You forgot all of that." "They were nobodies," Lily spat. "They were our family," Sienna said. She reached down and picked up the documents Victor had wanted her to sign. She ripped them in half, then in half again, letting the confetti rain down on Lily. "The money stays frozen," Sienna declared. "I will never sign. You get nothing. No empire, no crown." Lily screamed a primal sound of defeat. "Luca," Dante called out. The big enforcer groaned in the corner, holding his head. He was alive. "Yeah, boss. I'm good. Just a headache." "Call the police," Dante said. Sienna looked at him, shocked. "The police? You never call the police." "For Victor and Lily," Dante smiled grimly. "They kidnapped an innocent woman. They killed my brother, let them rot in a federal prison. Death is too easy for them." Luca grinned, pulling out his phone, with pleasure. 2 weeks later, the closed for private event sign hung on the heavy oak doors of Il Palazzo. Inside the restaurant was bathed in the warm glow of candlelight, but tonight there were no other patrons, no senators, no celebrities, just one table in the center of the room. Sienna sat at the table. She wasn't wearing the thrift store dress. She was wearing a gown of midnight blue silk that hugged her curves, a gift that had been delivered to her new apartment that morning. Around her neck sat a diamond necklace, not a tracker, but a true gift. She sipped her wine, waiting. Footsteps echoed from the mezzanine. Dante walked down the stairs. He wore a black tuxedo, his R.M. no longer in a sling, though he moved with a slight stiffness. He reached the table and bowed slightly. "Signorina Rossini," he said. "Mr. Moretti," she replied, a playful smile touching her lips. "I hear you have a table available for you. I have the whole building." He sat down opposite her. The tension of the chase, the gunfire, the betrayal, it was all behind them. But a new tension had replaced it, the tension of two people who had seen the darkest parts of each other and survived. "Valente and Lily were denied bail today," Dante said quietly. The evidence Luca provided regarding Matteo's murder was comprehensive. Sienna looked down at her glass. "I went to see her at the jail." Dante paused, and she didn't even look at me. She just kept staring at the wall, muttering about her crown. Sienna sighed. "I mourn her, but I mourned the sister she used to be, not the woman she became." Dante reached across the table and took her hand. His grip was warm, solid, permanent. "You have a choice now, Sienna," he said. "You know who you are. You know about the money. You could take it. You could leave Chicago, start over anywhere in the world. Is that what you want me to do?" she asked, searching his eyes. Dante stood up. He walked around the table and held out his hand. "Bring her to me," he whispered, echoing the words he had spoken the night they met. Sienna stood up. She placed her hand in his. "I'm already here," she said. Dante pulled her close, his other hand resting on the small of her back. The music in the restaurant, a soft Italian area, seemed to swell. "I don't want you to leave," Dante admitted, his voice rough with emotion. "I want you right here by my side. Chicago is a dangerous city, Sienna. It needs a queen who has a heart." Sienna looked up at him. The man who had kidnapped her, saved her, and fought for her. "I'm not going anywhere, Dante," she promised. He leaned down and kissed her. It wasn't a tentative kiss like the one in the safe house. It was a claim, a promise, a seal on a future that would be written in blood and gold, but mostly in love. Outside, the snow began to fall on Chicago, covering the sins of the past in a blanket of white. But inside, Il Palazzo, the fire was just getting started. Wow, what a roller coaster. From a waitress in a thrift store dress to the lost days of the Rossini Empire, Sienna's journey proves that sometimes the most dangerous monsters are the ones we call family. Dante Moretti might be a ruthless mafia boss, but in the end, he was the only one who told the truth. What did you think of Lily's betrayal? Would you have been able to forgive your sister if she did that to you? Or would you have pulled the trigger? And do you think Sienna and Dante can really rule Chicago together without the darkness consuming them? Let me know your theories in the comments below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this story of twists, betrayal, and romance, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss the next dramatic episode. Until next time.